Bouddi National Park is often cited as one of the most beautiful sections of the New South Wales coast. It's in Central Coast, which is about an hour north of Sydney, where I live, so I decided it was a perfect destination for an overnight adventure. The usual way to do the trail is to start at Little Bay and then finish at Bouddi Bay down the other end. But since this was a solo expedition, my plan was to do the normal route on the first afternoon, set up camp at Bouddi Bay, and then do the return journey in the morning. My hope was that by seeing everything twice, I'd catch a few different lighting conditions and maybe find some things to photograph again the second day and compare. Just spotted a little echidna. I have some Kodak Gold and a little bit of Portra 400, which I might break out tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see. Weather's not amazing today, so I'm not sure if this is going to be the best for photos, but hopefully tomorrow morning will be beautiful. I started with the gold because the lighting conditions were very uninspiring and I wanted to save the Portra for sunrise or sunset, when I could make the most of its extra latitude. The first part of the journey was mostly under cloud cover, which really mutes the vibrant colours of the Australian bush in a way I don't like. It was forecast that the clouds would dissipate later in the afternoon, so I was holding out for a good bit of sun towards the end. This was also my first time doing an overnight for one of these videos, so I wasn't used to carrying this much stuff. Turns out, filming equipment is not very conducive with the ultralight ethos, and as much as I tried to be minimal, the pack weighed around 18 kilos. When I eventually made it to Little Bay, this sign caught my attention. It had some kind of decommissioned pipe draped over it in an interesting way. I felt like it told a story. What is it and where did it come from? And it made me excited to see what else I'd find along the way. After a few more pictures, I kept moving up the hill. The sun had started to come out and this forest section was beautiful with it coming through the trees. This fire trail seemed to go on forever. If you watched many of my videos, you know that I love a coastal trail, but doing this one in this way really makes you earn the views. Some people enjoy just walking for walking's sake, but for me, I need some kind of a purpose. So, making good progress. I've done maybe half of the walking, and it's 20 to 5, but sunset's not till 8. The walk so far, to be honest, has been pretty boring. I haven't felt much inspiration to stop, and there's been nothing to take photos of really. This is somewhere I might stop on the way back tomorrow when the light should be nicer, but I'll take a couple shots now and then it'll be interesting to see how it compares with what I get at the same place tomorrow. As the scenery opened up and the sun got a little lower, everything just started to work. This kind of scene is what gives me the energy to get out in nature. But still, I felt like I hadn't done a great job of capturing it, no matter how much I try and tell myself that's not the point. I saw this log on the beach surrounded by seaweed that had washed up from the recent storms. I didn't think much of it at the time, but made a mental note to come back the next day and check it out. At this point in my journey, if I'm honest, I was feeling a little disappointed. I had high expectations for the walk and for the photos I'd get along the way, but I still felt like I hadn't met them. The scenery had been beautiful in parts, but the light was difficult and there were many sections of the track where you couldn't see anything at all. I was also getting tired after a long day. One thing I've always struggled with is the need to make everything I create be better than what came before it. This may sound like a good goal to have, but it often leads to frustration when things aren't perfect. Looking back on this now and seeing how beautiful it was, it feels kind of ridiculous that I was feeling this way. But that's how perfectionism can poison your ideas. It's easy to miss something beautiful because it doesn't look exactly like how you expected. And all of this was going through my head when I rounded the corner onto one of the most beautiful landscapes I've seen in New South Wales. This place was so unique and had so many rock formations unlike any I'd seen before. You couldn't have asked for better light, so I decided to stick around and finish off my roll of gold. That is gold finished. I got Portra 400. Since the Portra was my last roll of film and I had a whole day of shooting tomorrow, I didn't want to overdo it, but I knew this would look great on Portra, so I decided to shoot a few frames before moving on. And with that, all that was left was to get to camp and hopefully set up my tent before it got too dark. My camera's still been having some shutter issues, which is a little annoying to deal with. It had been fine the whole day up till this point, but for some reason they started cropping up again, and I lost a few shots because of it. This one I think could have been quite a nice shot, so I was sad to see it was also a victim of the shutter errors. Like most creatives, I'm not exactly a morning person, but there's something about sunrises that just always makes it worth it to me. As painful as it is to get myself out of bed so early, once you see the sun peeking over the horizon, it's like none of it matters. The world wakes up around you, and another day begins. I spent some time trying to capture the glow that you get when the light catches the spray from the waves crashing into the rocks. It was pretty hit or miss, since it's hard to tell how big the spray is going to be until the wave actually hits, and then you have to make a split-second decision whether to take the photo or not and waste some film. But after some trying, I got this one. Considering my camera can only go to 1/1000th of a second shutter speed, I really didn't expect this one to come out so well. A cup of coffee when out in nature is one of life's great pleasures, and this sachet coffee was maybe one of the best I've ever had. It was time to pack up camp and make the return journey before the sun got too high. My main plan for the rest of the day was just to revisit some of the spots along the way and see how things had changed overnight. Shooting landscapes with the sun at your back is generally a bad idea because the sun acts like a giant on-camera flash, washing out everything. But I like the way this one turned out, with the Portra giving it a kind of vintage appeal. Back to the plateau where I'd spent the sunset the previous evening, but by now the sun was getting higher and was coming from almost complete opposite angle to the day before. The difference in mood was striking, and side by side, it almost doesn't look like the same place. This is why lighting and timing is so important, and why good landscape photographers will just keep revisiting the same places over and over and over again. This log from before? I made it back to the same beach where I'd found it. I was hoping that under the morning light, I'd be able to shoot back towards the northern side of the beach, which was just a more interesting background. I found the log again, and it had repositioned itself further down the beach. Now it was caught up in even more seaweed than the day before, and it was pointing towards my background, giving a really pleasing composition with some leading lines.
I like the idea of capturing something in two different ways, different days, see how things change over time. I stopped at the same spot that I stopped at yesterday, and I wanted to have another look, but it's still, the sun's probably too high for a good photo, but we'll see how it turns out.
By the time I'd made it back here, it was late morning and the sun was pretty high. I don't love either attempt here, and they both could have benefited from a wider lens. In photography, especially in nature, I believe patience is the best attribute you can have. If you start to get impatient, like I was at the beginning, you might miss an opportunity just because it wasn't exactly how you dreamt it up. But sometimes, the difference between an okay photo and a great photo is just waiting 5 minutes.